Welcome back to Liberty Nation TV. This is Scott D. Cosenza with Managing Editor Mark Angelides. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Pleasure, Scott.
To talk about globalist control and the imposition of language and thoughts. Sounds positively Orwellian. You've written recently about the idea of globalism on libertynation.com and how our perceptions are being purposefully clouded. Can you expand upon this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to use a good example, I always find that examples work better than abstract thoughts for this. Is all we need to do is look at Bernie Sanders' 2.5 trillion housing plan. And this is a great example of it. So on the one hand, what Bernie Sanders is doing, and this is a noble goal. I mean, there's no arguing that it'd be great to solve homelessness. It'd be great to solve rent instability or people worrying whether they're going to have a roof over their heads next week. This would be wonderful to solve. So you've got Bernie Sanders, he's saying he's got a $2.5 trillion plan to fix this. Okay, so $2.5 trillion. This works out as 129, 130 million families within the US, which works out about $20,000 per family over the period of the legislation.
Sounds like a bargain.
Yeah, it's pretty good. $20,000, I'll take it. But then, he's also asking for a relaxation in border laws, or a more open borders or semi-porous border.
You're not going to suggest that people might respond to that incentive and pour through the open border, are you? People aren't motivated like that, Mark. What gives you that idea?
Scott, you have just clicked on to what 14% of likely Democrat voters have failed to click onto. As soon as people start coming in, we end up with the same situation again. You end up with, there are now more people who are not covered by the initial 2.5 trillion who are in the country and presumably following, if Bernie Sanders happens to win the presidency in 2020 or 2024, or let's be fair, he'll still be going in 2050. He's like the Terminator of the Socialist Democratic Party.
What's not to like? He gets a lot of money and attention for these efforts, right?
Absolutely right. But what happens is you get a lot of people who, let's be fair, their lives are probably not very good if they're willing to up sticks and move for the sake of a bit more stable housing. So nobody's blaming these people for wanting to come in.
Certainly not. No, in fact, we're crediting them with responding rationally to their circumstances, which
exactly
is to say they're very poor in one instance and they'll be significantly richer in another. What person of average intelligence or even worse wouldn't go to the better spot? We're crediting them, not blaming them.
Exactly right. But what happens is, let's say you end up with another 50 to 100,000 people in one area that you weren't planning on. And of course, with open borders, you can never plan. And so now you have to put more money into this plan. So what seems like a fix-all, $2.5 trillion, will fix the homeless issue and the housing issue. It's now an issue that is no longer fixed. It's now an issue that, well, we threw money at it and now we have this, which is an incentive. It's created the incentive to create this problem again. And you see, this is how we're asked to marry the two things together. On one hand, we can fix housing with an influx of money and the right attitude. On the other, our right attitude is going to incentivize more people to take advantage of it, thus nullifying the good that we've done with the initial proposition.
Okay, well, Mark, I know that you focus a lot on not just ideas themselves, but the messaging and how it's presented. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, let's use an example. We have Saint Greta Thunberg speaking at the UN recently.
This poor, angry young woman is been set out to basically shame the rest of the world to do what her parents or other actors think is politically viable, because she is unassailable in polite society. And by that I mean she's a 16-year-old autistic spectrum young girl, and so she's been set out on the world not because she possesses some particular interesting scientific theory or knowledge or even anecdotal knowledge or experience, but just because she's good at shaming people because it's hard to attack her because of her immutable characteristics. So anyway, that's my take on.
Well, I think you misspoke there. It's not shaming, Scott. It's saving.
So, oh, excuse
apparently,
me.
yes,
Right.
apparently being saved. But it's very interesting this because you have Greta, and she's clearly a very smart girl, very passionate. But she's 16 years old, or 15, 16 years old. And so those who would criticize not her, but the message that she's bringing are being, and it's very, very popular now, it's saying that older men are feeling threatened by her youth. And this is a big message that's coming out. Older men, especially older white men, are being threatened by her youth and vitality.
When she comes and says that she wants the rest of us to pay for reimagining the world in an image that she prefers, why would we be cautious about that?
Absolutely. But here's the thing. So we're being told that you can't criticize Greta because of her age, and it's unfair to be, as they like to call it in the Democrat Party, punching down is no good. But here's the thing. We're also being asked at the same time to consider who should be allowed to vote. Now, this is especially true in the UK, and I'd like to take you down a little rabbit hole here. We're being asked, now that the Brexit vote won, although Brexit hasn't been delivered yet, the Brexit vote won, the politicians who opposed Brexit are asking for another referendum, but with a lower voting age. So lowering the voting age to 16 years old, because they believe, possibly correctly, that the younger people will be more open to the idea of having.
That sounds awfully cynical, Mark. I think they just want to be more inclusive with their decision making, isn't it?
Inclusive of everybody who agrees with them. Yeah. Right. So what's happening is now we're being told that 16-year-olds are adult enough to make this political decision. But at the same time, we have another story, and there's a young lady, Shamima Begum. I don't know if this has made it to the stateside news, but Shamima Begum is known as the young ISIS bride, and she was born and raised in London, and then at age 15, late 15, she decided to go off to the Middle East and join ISIS.
So romantic.
Oh, very, yeah. I mean, ISIS brides. There is a certain appeal to it, you know. It's people.
It's much more exciting than
Fred, who works in
studying for your A levels or whatever, right? Whatever you people do over there.
So anyway, very sadly, she had a couple of miscarriages and wants to come home to the UK. Now, bear in mind, this is a girl who has admitted that during her time there, she was sewing suicide vests, encouraging ISIS fighters to carry out the things that ISIS fighters do. But we're being asked to not treat her as an adult, but to treat her as a child who has been created a victim. Yet at the same time, on the other hand, we're being told, well, people of age 16, they're wise enough, they're adult enough to make a decision regarding the Brexit debate. And this very much ties in with the messaging, and the messaging being that you can believe this, and you should also believe this. And this is the problem. This is where it's almost like a globalist ideology asks you to have contradictory thoughts and hold them in place at the same time. And as to what the end game would be here, I would suggest that it's to create within society a feeling of almost trepidation, where people are afraid to speak out, even for something that they believe is just a standardized fact, because they may be treading on a politically correct toe. So they want to create almost an era of fear and trepidation, whereby almost any policy, because remember, these kind of policies, if you hear open borders in the US, you're hearing it at the same time in most Western countries. It's a coordinated effort on these things. If any policies that are up for grabs in the US, especially from the progressive left, if you look overseas, Australia, Canada, the UK, various European countries, you'll notice that the same push is going on here. It's a very coordinated action. And what the globalist ideal is that we're all too afraid to actually put a foot wrong. So we won't speak out against what are clearly logical inconsistencies.
Controlling language is the same as controlling thought. Orwell said it. Jordan Peterson said it. That's where the battlefront lies these days. For reporting on it, Mark Angelides, managing editor for LibertyNation.com. This is Scott Cosenza. Please read more of Mark's fine work. And for he mentioned the rabbit hole. He also is the star of the Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, a podcast of LibertyNation.com, available wherever finer podcasts are aggregated. Thanks. Bye.